Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Raise podcast. Today, we're joined by Zoe Scanlan, a homeopath, mother, and passionate advocate for natural family health. In addition to her clinical work, Zoe serves as course director for the homeopathy program at the London College of Naturopathic Medicine, helping to shape the next generation of practitioners. We've both had the pleasure of working with Zoe, and we're really excited to delve into the world of homeopathy and healing with her today.
Zoe, thank you so much for joining us today.
That's my pleasure. Lovely to be with you.
Can we start with your journey and what first led you to explore homeopathy, and how did it shift your understanding of health and well-being?
All those years ago, I think to start off with, even as a teenager and a young person, I was always quite naturally minded. I think I just love nature, actually. And so always naturally minded, but it was really when I was pregnant with my first child, who is now 19, so it's like 20 years ago. Yeah, that journey really took off. It was when I was pregnant, and actually we were really considering vaccination. I was pregnant, and I remember sitting in a clinic. I think I was having a pregnancy massage or something, and I saw this leaflet, which I'm just going to show you because it really changed my life.
Oh.
So this leaflet, shouldn't the effects of vaccination be considered before? And I was just sitting there waiting for my pregnancy massage, and I just glanced over and saw that, and it really I thought, gosh, I didn't even know that was something to consider or think about. Yeah. So that like planted a seed in me. And then in the pregnancy, like I started doing a lot of research about health and immunity and vaccinations, and that actually led on to me going to a talk by a homeopath who spoke about homeopathy and made a reference, which was also another seed that kind of landed in my mind, about how in homeopathy you really consider the emotional and mental well-being of someone. So whilst someone might come for, I don't know, like IBS or something, you really look and consider how they feel, how they are emotionally, what their emotional landscape is, if they're anxious, if, anything. And that really struck a chord with me, because I'm a really sensitive person, and I can see within myself that if something happens emotionally in life, you get, it doesn't even have to be something big. It could be like a job that you're stressed with, or you're going through something difficult in a relationship, how it affects the body.
Yeah.
And I could see that and feel that so clearly within myself. So when this homeopath said that, it really I thought, oh my gosh, how amazing, a medicine that actually takes into consideration your emotional state. So that was the first seed. And then when I was pregnant, I really wanted to have a home birth. I was already quite naturally minded, and I was like, I'm not going to go into hospital. I'm going to do it myself. So I wanted to sort of start to gather information about how I could do that. And I remember, and I was living in Brighton at the time, and we've got a lovely Neal's Yard in Brighton, as you both know. Yeah. And at the time, there was lots of therapists, this is 20 years ago, so it's quite different now, unfortunately, but there was a lot of therapists, like massage therapists, homeopaths, herbalists in there. And I just happened to go in to ask, what could I do to promote having a home birth? And I happened to speak to a homeopath. And so I came out with this.
The kit.
So this is a Helios homeopathic pharmacy birth kit, childbirth kit.
Oh, and specifically for childbirth.
Specifically for childbirth. So it's got 18 remedies in here that are all sort of focused on different aspects of childbirth.
Okay.
And so I knew nothing about homeopathy at this point, but I came out with this kit and a few notes in my notebook saying, if I get really fearful, give me this, because I was writing notes to my partner, that was his job.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, if I get really frightened or if I get panicked, because I wasn't nervous about it, but obviously
it's the unknown, isn't it?
It's totally
Especially
the unknown
for your first time.
Exactly. Yeah. So so it was aconite, if I get fear and panic. There was another one, if you hemorrhage, there was a remedy, phosphorus. I had a few remedies that were sort of key, and then postpartum remedies like arnica, calendula, hypericum. So I had a few little notes, and I remember sticking them on the wall in the room that I was planning for my birthing room. And that was my first introduction to homeopathy. And to be honest, I don't know how much I used it in the birth. I remember we had a lovely midwife that just sat there very quietly in the corner. and at one point, probably maybe I was going through a transition in the birth process. And I remember her saying, perhaps there's something in the homeopathy kit that we could give Zoe at this point. And I think I was given pulsatilla, which, is a very sort of soothing, comforting, supportive remedy for someone who's very tearful, unsure, a bit like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I think I was in a bit of that state.
Yeah.
And that was the extent of, I had a home birth. It all went to plan. It was a bit longer than I would have wanted. But yeah. And so, but it was really when my son had a healthy son at home. And it was really when he was 10 weeks old that my real homeopathic journey began, because he developed a patch of impetigo on his leg, which started off with a tiny little blister on the inside of his thigh. He was 10 weeks old. And I remember looking at this blister thinking, where did that come from? I thought the only way you got blisters was by burning yourself. And I knew he hadn't got burnt. And so I guess we noticed the blister, and then the blister popped, and you can imagine what the skin looked like underneath. It was kind of raw and, sort of a bit oozing. And then this wound, I don't know, do you know, have you seen impetigo?
No, not
it's
in
a fungal.
person.
No. You're lucky. It's really awful.
Is it a whole body? I always thought it was kind of like a whole body rash, but can it be localized?
No. It's more local. It's like a
Okay.
fungal. It's basically a fungal condition, and it starts off. I think it can start. A wound can be there, and it can kind of arrive into the wound, and basically that's what happened. So and it basically just this wound started growing, and after about 2 or 3 days, it was about the size of a 50p piece. And on a new baby, it was really shocking. And I think that it must have reached that size on a Sunday, because I remember we went off to emergency doctor at the local hospital in Brighton, and he prescribed antibiotics. And I was just like, my internal sort of torment began really, because I started I was like, he's 10 weeks old, I can't bear to give him antibiotics. I remember kind of pleading with the doctor, there must be is there not a cream? Is there not something else we could put on? And he said, no, it's bad, and I had to agree with him. It was.
Yeah.
And I didn't know.
It's scary, isn't it?
It was, yeah, it was. And so we went and got the antibiotics and took it home. And I just felt really kind of torn. I didn't know, I definitely knew my instinct was I didn't want to give it, but I also didn't know what else to do.
Mm.
And then I remembered there was a phone number on the back of my homeopathy kit. And so I thought, I kind of made a bargain with myself. I'm going to phone the helpline, and still just for people to know that Helios and Ainsworth, the two sort of main homeopathic pharmacies in the UK, you can always phone them. There's a helpline that you can always call if you've got any sort of acute situation. And they're really efficient. You can just tell them a little bit about the situation, and they'll send a remedy out, usually
That's
arrives the next day.
amazing.
If you phone
Yeah.
before
Wow.
12, it usually arrives the next day.
Amazing.
So this is what I did. So I phoned Helios, and they asked a few questions, and they kind of guided me to a remedy that might be good for impetigo, and also the way it presents, because how a symptom presents in homeopathy is really important. It's not just, we don't just have remedies for impetigo, we have remedies on how it looks, what makes it better, what makes it worse. So we went through a few questions, and so they sent a remedy called ant crud, which is not a common remedy. It's not a remedy that you'd find in any of the basic homeopathy kits. And I gave this remedy because he was 10 weeks old and he wasn't eating food. I crushed these little pills, made them into a powder, and I gave him a little sort of dash of the powder on the inside of his mouth straight away in the morning, one at lunchtime, one bit of crumb at lunchtime, and then a little bit just before bed. And when I gave him the dose at bedtime, I looked at the skin and I thought, I think it looks a bit better. But I thought, but it can't be. I have only, I've kind of crushed one of these little pills. I've given him a few dots of powder. How could that be? And so I just put it down to wishful thinking. Next morning, it was literally amazing. The wound it didn't look red anymore. It stopped oozing. You could just see it had a healthy scab over it, and you could just see it had completely turned a corner. So rather than growing and becoming worse and bigger, you could see that it started the healing journey. So I was just like, oh my God,
Mind blown, yeah.
How did that happen? And I just couldn't, considering how much medicine I'd actually given him, it was like nothing.
Yeah.
And so that kind of really, I was like, how? And I gave him 3 doses, and literally that was it. And then the scab just healed up like any wound would, and it was gone. And he's never had anything like that since. So that was really the first seed. Then some months later, I was at a really low ebb, and I'm sure many mothers can relate to this, exhausted, from, broken night's sleep, breastfeeding, getting used to being a mother. And he was probably about 4 or 5 months old, and I was just exhausted. I wasn't just exhausted though, I felt really low. I felt anxious and really low. And it was like my mood kind of flatlined. And I could tell that I was anxious about, it was like generalized anxiety. It wasn't anything really specific. It was just, I just felt anxious in myself. And I just put it down to, everything you have to go through as a new mother, like kind of tiredness and like, just depletion. And my sister said to me, why don't you go and see a homeopath? Because at this point, I think the health visitor was getting me to fill out those like, are you postnatally depressed kind of forms, and saying, well, we could put you on some antidepressants. And again, I was like, that is so not going to happen. And it's important that I do say that, pharmaceutical drugs, everything has its place. And it's, and it can be a lifesaver for many people. But me being me and wanting to keep things as natural as I can, and that's just always been my way, that would have been my last resort. So I went to see a homeopath, and you both know, because you've both had homeopathic or been in a homeopathic consultation, they're very in-depth. And although we've spoken a lot about children, when it's you going through it, you really go through so much history of your life and things that in life that have led you to the point where you're feeling these emotions, like, or physical symptoms, whatever it is. And within a homeopathic consultation, we're always looking for the root cause. We're not just looking for a remedy that will get rid of your depression. We're looking at what it is that's led you to feel this way. And also your character, because we're all susceptible to different things. So not every woman feels depressed. Do you know what I mean? Like some women, I see some women, they're kind of just thriving on this like motherhood. I wasn't like that. I found it really hard and really kind of draining. And so she gave me a remedy, sepia. And now I work with loads of mums, and there's not many mums that escape me without getting sepia at some point along the journey. Because I think, motherhood and looking after a home, it's relentless. And it's, we all have our limits of where we get to the point where we're like absolutely exhausted and depleted. And maybe it's an important journey because we learn how to take care of ourselves, what we need. And but sepia is just such a lifesaver for many mums that just feel depleted. A worn out old dish rag is how I would describe
I feel
it.
Like I need that.
Also, if you think of the minerals and the nutrients, so we are depleted.
Yeah, absolutely.
After giving birth to a child,
well,
even just childbirth, it's like we've given everything to this baby, so we come out the other side actually physically depleted as well as the emotional. We're not used to sleepless nights.
No,
so
I know. Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah, well, sleep's a form of torture in some countries, isn't it?
Yeah,
sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
And also,
and the pressures we now have in modern society to still keep up with everything. It's not like we just fully take 6 months to ourselves, which we really should. But we aren't able to do that.
Yeah, and in Ayurveda, they really take care of mums in a way that is much more realistic, holistic. And also the way we live, we're sort of these units in little homes where we're not living in a community and as a tribe anymore. And I think where all the women come together to support each other, and the men are all together. I think there's a real sort of dysfunction in the way we all sort of live anyway, which is a real pressure on family units, mothers and fathers alike. But just going back to the depletion, I remember a lovely woman in Brighton who I did my active birth classes with when I was pregnant. I remember her saying, for every drop of breast milk, you use sort of the equivalent of 10 drops of blood.
Wow.
Yeah, so it shows what the body energetically is putting into creating that breast milk, which of course is like nectar. It's like the best thing. So depletion is something that's very real.
Yeah.
And the picture of sepia is exhausted, depleted, and kind of grumpy as well. Like you kind of feel like you're snapping at your husband, you're snapping at the children and then of course you have that awful guilty feeling that you think, oh, I know it's not their fault. I'm sorry. I just, and I think so many mums can relate to that state, unfortunately, because I just think we don't get the support we really need, to do what it's
not encouraged to rest.
No, it's not. So hopefully I do believe things are really fundamentally changing, but that's something I'd really like to see happen faster for more mums. Anyway, sepia, I had a dose that night after I had my session, maybe one in the day and one at night. And I woke up the next morning and this was like aha moment really for homeopathy. I woke up and I just remember looking around the room and thinking, everything looks a little bit brighter. And I felt a little bit lighter. I felt fundamentally different in myself. And it wasn't that I felt like, oh, that's it, I'm cured, everything's perfect. It was just this shift. It was a really distinct feeling of a shift within myself. And now as a homeopath working for, I don't know, maybe 15 years, something like this, as a practicing homeopath, I now know what that is, because when you give a homeopathic remedy, you're always aiming to kind of reach into the core of somebody and really fundamentally shift their energy. And we have this expression now that if somebody has a remedy that really works for them and really lands with them, and it's like sort of a very well matched remedy, we have this expression where they feel better in themselves. And when somebody feels better in themselves, you know that you've hit the good bit, and even if their physical symptoms haven't entirely resolved, in a way you've shifted their energy internally, and that will then ripple out to the physical body in time.
Amazing.
And this was what I felt. And it was just a lightness and a shift. And I went back to see that homeopath monthly after that. We generally do our sessions, the homeopathic sessions, once a month, unless, maybe the first session or the second, we do it a bit more close together to make sure we're kind of on the right track. But generally it's monthly. And so I went to see her monthly for probably a year. And it felt like incrementally each time I went to see her, I was just that little bit better, a little bit more balanced. And it wasn't like I was like all in perfect state before I was pregnant. I had loads of stuff going on in my life before then. So it just felt like it just helped me get back to myself more and more and more. Yeah. It was like, in therapy, they talk about layers of an onion. It was a little bit like that. So sepia was my first remedy, and I went back, and then, different things present when you're not that exhausted, different things come up, and then you speak about that, and then you get a remedy for that. So so that was my journey really. It's a long explanation,
Incredible.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I think it's helpful for people to understand, how, because in a way my experience showed how homeopathy can work for the physical body as well as the emotional.
Yes.
And I think that's really something I want to get across to people, because homeopathy's had a bad rap in the media. In the college that I work at, the College of Naturopathic Medicine, when it started 25 years ago, homeopathy was the biggest course by far. And then it went, homeopathy's really been exposed to a lot of like negative media attention, which is completely unfounded. But it has had effect on people's choices. If you're going to choose between acupuncture and homeopathy, if you hear something negative like homeopathy's just placebo, there's nothing in it.
The main thing is that people, the negative kind of connotations for it are.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, that's some of them.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really, really happy to talk about, to sort of dispel those. Yeah. I know that's something we'll probably touch on. But yeah, so people's perception of it is more negative. I think things are changing in the last sort of 5, maybe COVID really helped. I think things are really changing now. But now, things are, I think people are more open again to natural holistic therapies and remedies, but definitely homeopathy is on its way back, and that feels really exciting to me, and I'm delighted to be talking to you girls about it. Yeah.
So for those that are new to it and kind of don't understand it, can you break down exactly what homeopathy is and what it kind of entails?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing, I mean, this is the way I think about it. Homeopathy, the first thing to say about it is it's an energy medicine. So, and I think that's where the negative, people can think an energy medicine, what does that mean? But energy I think in our culture, it's not an accepted part of our world. If you live in China, they talk about energy as qi. If we're talking about Ayurveda, in India, they talk about energy as prana. So it's a very much accepted concept in other countries. I think in England, it's less so. And I think we're quite detached from nature and our roots, our instincts, our intuition. And so we kind of have moved very far away from that and away from living in contact and in connection with nature. So the fact that homeopathy is an energy medicine, for me, it's really exciting. That's its like USP in a way, that it's, and it's not something that we're ashamed of. It's like, it's energy medicine, and it really, really works. And it works on our most subtle sort of layers of existence in a way that, if somebody enters a room and you're not looking, you've got your eyes away and all your senses are kind of cut off, there's a part of us, if we focus, we can sense that somebody is nearby. And it's this part of ourselves that is sort of overshadowed and not really taken seriously as much as it should be. And homeopathy works on that, on our energy system. The other thing to say is that it's taken from nature. And in my mind, it's a way of harnessing the healing energy of nature and bringing it and making it accessible to people in pill form. So we take homeopathic remedies from plants and animals and minerals, like plants like Arnica montana, which is our number one remedy for bruising. We'd use remedies like sulfur, which is a mineral, calcarb, taken from the inside of an oyster shell, phosphorus, which is a mineral that they use in fireworks to make them bright, light up. And we use I don't know if you've heard of the doctrine of signatures. No. It's basically how, I think you will have heard of it, but maybe not called the doctrine of signatures, but it's basically how something presents in nature gives us an idea of what it can help within the body.
Yes,
so like you might see like a walnut that looks like a brain. So like, for example, sulfur, it's very often, that mineral is often found in volcanic areas, and like it's like a sort of a yellowy powder. I remember going to New Zealand and seeing like the geysers like shooting out of the ground, in volcanic regions, and sulfur would be present in those regions. So it's like it's somewhere where it's hot and fiery and smelly. And the doctrine of signatures helps us understand how sulfur would help in the body. So we use sulfur for skin. It's used for lots of different things, but eczema, it's a great eczema remedy where the skin is hot, red, and the character and the person can be kind of messy looking, even a bit smelly, and they're hot beings, their bodies are hot. So we're kind of going into what we'll talk about constitutional prescribing, but we'll get to that later. But so remedies are taken from nature. We also have lots of other sources of remedies, but just to keep it simple, as this is like, sort of an introduction to homeopathy. I'm thinking about calendula, like the marigold. We use that to heal the skin. So there's a really lovely, like postpartum, we were talking about birthing, so postpartum. So we use calendula for, for healing all the wounds and the little abrasions and any tears that happen in childbirth. We use hypericum, which is St. John's wort, herb to work on the nerves of the system. So where, you might scuff your knee, or in childbirth, it's really painful to have a wee after you've given birth, isn't it? Just because of all those little abrasions that happen, and it makes those nerves exposed. So we use hypericum to heal the nervous system, or not the nervous system exactly, but where nerves are, where there might be shooting pains in the nervous system. To explain homeopathy, it's also based on a principle like cures like. That's also a really fundamental sort of principle that homeopathy is based on. And I don't want to confuse anyone, but I'll just give an example of this. If you were chopping an onion, for example, and you chop that root part of the onion off, and it can affect your eyes, can't it? It can be like stinging to your eyes. It can make you weep. What a substance creates in a healthy body can also heal in a sick body. So we use the onion to treat symptoms where people have symptoms of stinging eyes and running in ailments such as hay fever.
Right, okay.
So it's using a little bit of something that in a healthy body, it creates symptoms. In a homeopathic dose, it can heal. Another example is coffea, which is our homeopathic remedy made of coffee. So if we have a cup of coffee, we'll have a busy mind, palpitations. It really agitates the sort of system. And we use coffea as an insomnia remedy, where you're lying in bed, not just any insomnia. It has to be insomnia where your mind is racing. You've got that sense of agitation in the body, and it really, really calms the mind. Yeah. So I had an example of this myself, and still homeopathy surprises me.
Okay.
Even though I know what it does, it still surprises me. So I was in bed one night, and sometimes you just can't sleep, for there's something going on, your mind's thinking about things, and the bed doesn't feel comfortable. You're one way.
We literally both had a night like this last night. Yeah. We were talking about this morning. We were like, was there something planetary going on?
Yeah.
We both had really disruptive sleep.
Yeah.
So we could have done with that last night.
You could, yeah, you could. And I remember going downstairs because I thought, I'm not, this isn't working. So I went downstairs and, I could take a homeopathic remedy, because I do forget to take them for myself. And I thought I'll take coffea. And literally I took the remedy and I just felt like this sort of like soporific, sleepy feeling coming over me. I went and got back into bed and the bed felt comfortable. Yeah. That was the thing that I noticed the most of all. It was just suddenly like, oh yeah, I can just feel like I can go back to sleep. And I did. And it was a really tangible shift again So like cures like, that's very important. Does that, I'm not sure if I explained it enough about or how it, So
amazing.
It works on the...
And it's so good for children, isn't it? Because it's so something good. That they can really easily take. And that's why I think it's just so good. Because one of the forms homeopathy comes in is little sugar pills. And of course, children love a little bit of sugar. And and it's kind of a joy to give a remedy to a child because, they're going to enjoy it. I mean, homeopathy comes in many different forms. You can have it in liquid form, in sugar, in lactose sugar, lots of different forms. But it makes it so accessible. And I always think about it when a mum's giving a remedy to a child. It's also like it's kind of like a little bit of love as well. Because when you give, because we are talking about energy, if you go to see, any of my clients that come to see me, they're getting a little bit of me and my intention and my hope for them. So it's also worth saying that it's really important to choose a homeopath if you want to work with a homeopath that you kind of feel a nice resonance with. Not that they have like a great mind or anything like that. It's that feeling of connection and resonance, and you trust them that they're going to be doing their best for you. So when a mum gives a remedy to a child, it's really lovely because the child feels taken care of. It's also a magic healing pill.
And so how can homeopathy support the whole family, especially in the childhood, early childhood years?
Well, I mean, for me as a practitioner, I would want all mums to learn how to use homeopathy. Because I think you can always come to see a homeopath like myself, but I'm really keen that mums and parents learn to use homeopathy because there's so much you can do on a day-to-day basis. That, I mean, you could, I work a lot with parents, and I do like what we call acute consultations where they'll just phone me up and have a 15-minute chat about a cough or a cold or something acute, short-lived. And then the mum, if the mums that I work with, I'll often encourage them to buy a homeopathy kit. So then they'll have, like this one. So they've got like little vials of the most commonly used remedies. And so if we're on a telephone call and I say, okay, try Drosera for this cough, then they've got, they can just go to it straight away. So I would really encourage mums and families to get a homeopathy kit, get a little book that they can refer to and start to learn to use and see what's possible. And I've got a little book here it's Homeopathy and Natural Remedies for Children.
I think I've seen that in Infinity Foods.
Oh, yeah. Right. It is. It is in there. And it has, this isn't the only book. There's lots of really lovely books, but this one's got, it's just like if I just open it on like the diarrhea page, for example.
And can people order this online?
Yeah, you can go. You can from Helios or from my website or from shops in Brighton.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's got like a little table of like just short descriptions. It's not advanced homeopathy like we like to. I'll explain later why this isn't the best homeopathy, but it's a really good introduction for parents.
It can be overwhelming though, I think.
It can be.
I think that's a really nice.
This is like noddy homeopathy. Okay. And parents will say to me that this is like dog-eared in their bag because it's just like literally bullet points. It's in the middle of the night. You're like, fever, what would you need to give? And so something like this is really helpful, that you've got a kit, you've got a few basic remedies, you've got a little book that you can refer to, and obviously you've got a connection with a homeopath where you can do deeper work because homeopathy can help with fevers. As a new mum, if you've got a child in the middle of the night with a fever and you can work out a remedy to give them and they do this wonderful sigh, roll over and go back to sleep, that is like a double win. That is like a triple win for a mum, Okay. So bringing homeopathy into a family can do so much for the parents. It can bring a kind of sense of empowerment and peace. I really see that because I work with lots of parents that are quite anxious about health. And they don't realise they're anxious about health until they have a child. And then they can feel really like, oh my God, I've got this beautiful little being that I need to look after. And I want to do everything. I want to do my best. I can't bear anything to happen to them.
It's such a huge responsibility.
It's a massive responsibility. And you adore them so much.
You want to do your
total best.
But there's guilt either way, isn't there? This is the thing, is that you never know really whether you're doing the right thing, because you have one side of the medical industry telling you to do a certain thing, where there are sometimes in your gut that might not feel right. But then if you don't do what they tell you to do, are you being, irresponsible? It's really difficult.
It is very difficult. But that's where I always refer mums back to themselves.
Okay.
Because I feel that we're very disconnected from ourselves and our internal guidance mechanisms as mothers. Yes, we're very lucky. We've got a fantastic medical system that is always there. We've got the NHS to support us. But when I work with parents to bring homeopathy into their family, it's all about creating a new plan A. So all the things you might have used, Calpol, painkillers, whatever you might have used before, it's not that you don't ever have to use, that you can't ever use them again. They become plan B, and we start to pad out and really nourish and grow the knowledge and the tools that you can use, which is your new plan A of natural remedies, homeopathy, herbs, flower essences, Ayurveda. Like, all these different things are so available to us, where there's so much knowledge that's available to parents now. And homeopathy is one thing. Of course, I completely advocate homeopathy because I see how good it is. It's so gentle, it's non-toxic. You have to work really hard to do anything wrong with homeopathy. It's very, very forgiving. And so to bring a homeopathy kit and that knowledge into a parent's world, that child is going to benefit so much. The health of that child is going to benefit so much, because you're going to turn to your remedies first. And the more proficient you become, the less you're ever going to turn to needing to use Calpol, painkillers, antibiotics, even going to the doctor.
But what's so nice as well is that I know when I've turned to homeopathy, you don't have that sense of doing something that is going to have negative side effects. No. So, for example, obviously, we all know that antibiotics are going to affect your gut, or Calpol in the long term can have a negative effect. So what's really nice is that when you're giving these remedies, there's no negative side effect, and that is so nice.
That's so reassuring for parents, because so homeopathy will either do something positive or it will do nothing.
Exactly.
So that's just like a win for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
So going back to how can homeopathy help a family? It can just, as a mother, you can treat nappy rash, you can treat colic yourself, you can treat fevers. And I hope we'll talk about fevers, because fevers is almost like the number one thing.
Yeah,
is it? Okay, great.
Question,
because I think fevers is like one of the most important single thing you can do as a parent to support your child's health. And by just treating day-to-day ailments using homeopathy, you're not suppressing.
It's even like teething. I think that was one of the first things that I started using it on my oldest, was for teething.
Yeah, exactly. And you have like the Nelson's teething granules that are really available, and they're just absolutely brilliant. But there is one thing I want to say about that, because people see like the Nelson's teething granules, for some children that will work, because constitutionally the chamomilla remedy that is used in those granules will match that child.
Yeah.
If that child isn't a chamomilla type or isn't presenting in a chamomilla state, it won't help. So this is my one thing that I would love parents to know. So give those chamomilla teething granules a go. But if it doesn't help your child, it doesn't mean homeopathy doesn't work. And this is something that I think, I tried those granules, the homeopathy doesn't work. No, it's because homeopathy is always individualised. It's always an individualised prescription. So a proportion of children, it will help. But if they're presenting in, say, a pulsatilla presentation, where chamomilla is, a basic picture of chamomilla is that they're in pain and they're angry. So they're like, the child is inconsolable, the pain feels awful, and they're writhing around. They want to stop that pain, and they're at the parent, pick me up, put me down, I want that toy. I want that, and nothing will satiate them, nothing will soothe them. Whereas pulsatilla, they're in pain, but they're responding. They can be irritable and they can seem angry, but they're more like whimpering and like, Mummy, it doesn't feel good. And they're crying and they want connection and to be picked up. And what you'll notice with the difference between chamomilla and pulsatilla is that once you pick them up, they can kind of cope with the pain. Chamomilla will still be writhing around. They'll be still annoyed. They'll be still crying and really grumpy and angry. And they might be pushing you away.
Isn't it? There's two.
Yeah. And this is homeopathy at its best. If you can work out what remedy suits your child, and And it could be that they start off with a mild teething pain and pulsatilla soothes them. But then it could be that it could go up into, maybe that tooth cuts through and then it's really, really painful as it's just cutting through the gum. And maybe the pain kind of goes up a notch and they do go into a chamomilla state. Like I'm thinking about an earache with my son. He was, we were walking home from nursery. He seemed fine walking home. Literally the moment we got into the flat, he just fell on the floor and was writhing around in pain, saying, my ear, my ear. I looked at his ear and it was absolutely bright red. And so I gave him a remedy, belladonna, because belladonna's picture is red, throbbing inflammation, and his ear was painful. As soon as I gave him the belladonna, he calmed down, and then I think he calmed down, but he wanted me with him. So he was sitting on the sofa, but he wouldn't let me go anywhere else, which is really, really pulsatilla. No, mummy, just stay beside me. Don't go anywhere. You just have to touch me, just be with him. And our kitchen in that flat was literally just on the other side of, just a few meters away. He didn't want me even when I went to the kitchen, he'd be like, mummy, come back. So I gave him pulsatilla. And when I gave him pulsatilla, he went to sleep. And it's really good for parents to know that when you give a good remedy, if a child goes to sleep, you've, a bit like what we were saying about the sepia, that feeling better in yourself. Sleep is a really, really good response to a homeopathic remedy because it's the body shutting down. Sleep is the most healing thing we can do, isn't it? We all feel better for a good night's sleep. And so if a child goes to sleep, you know that you've done well with prescribing. He woke up sometime later, again, my ear. I repeated the pulsatilla and we kind of went along like this. And then there was a point where I realised I was giving him remedies and it wasn't really working and he was getting quite agitated, quite angry. And I realised, he's not pulsatilla anymore. He's gone chamomilla. He's gone into a chamomilla state. So he was getting really cross with me. No, mummy, and I realised, he doesn't need pulsatilla anymore. The picture's changed and I gave him chamomilla and then he went to sleep again. So I'm just telling you this story so people can get a sense of how it works with homeopathy, that you're kind of reading the picture of what's happening in front of you and giving the remedies accordingly.
So it might be a good time to actually jump into, we're going to come to constitutions and how you kind of figure out what type of constitution you are.
Okay, that's really
because
good.
It would be really beneficial if you know what you are or what your children are.
Yeah, really good, yeah. So what we're talking about here with the chamomilla and the teething or the earache, and also just to say actually that with remedies, we were talking about teething, but the same picture, it's exactly the same with earache. So it's that they're in pain and it's whether it's a pulsatilla pain or a chamomilla pain.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually, the symptom matters less than what they're presenting and how they're presenting emotionally. So that's just to say that what I'm describing about these different remedies applies to many different ailments. And it could be appendicitis pain or it could be sore throat pain. Have they got pain? Are they angry or are they crying?
Okay, so
on a very basic level.
Is it more a sad or
it's whimpering, like, oh, mummy, and so then that's always a pulsatilla picture, almost. No matter what the symptom is, it's not exactly like that, but to give a sense of how we decipher between remedies, how someone is emotionally really helps us. It guides us probably more than what's going on physically. It not exactly, but generally, because we also want to know what makes it worse, what makes it better, and things like this. So what we're talking about here is acute prescribing. And within homeopathy, there's different ways to prescribe. So acutely is what we're talking about and what mums and parents can learn to, use for the children or themselves or anybody. It doesn't have to be just parents. It's anybody can treat themselves homeopathically, acutely. Constitutional prescription is where you would go to a homeopath and that homeopath would do what they did for me when I went to get my sepia prescription. So that was a constitutional prescription for me, the sepia that I had. And you would ask, a homeopathic consultation is very, very in-depth. There's not many sort of health-related consultations that are as in-depth as what you do with a homeopathic case.
It's quite therapeutic, actually,
it's very
being
therapeutic.
Able to really go through all of those
your
questions.
Whole life, in a way.
It does. And especially even for your child, no matter who, it's for, it's kind of a very therapeutic thing to...
It is, because what it does is it takes a step back from what we're actually looking at and it looks at the whole picture of your life, your character, and your timeline up until that
and
point.
Your experiences.
All of the things that have contributed to you being you, all the negative and all the positive.
Which makes so much sense.
Yeah, total sense. Yeah. So before I see anybody for a consultation, I'll always get them to fill out a form before they come. It's like my intake form. It's not essential. It's just if they've got the time, and many mums do not have the time, and it's totally fine if they don't. But on that form is a timeline of what's happened at what age of the child or themselves. And do you know what? So many people have realizations just filling out that timeline of like, oh, God, I never noticed that when I had that medication, I then got that illness afterwards. I'm not blaming all medication for illness, but, you know, when I went through that bereavement or that divorce, that was when all of my symptoms began. And that's what we're always looking for in homeopathy. Someone, as I referred to IBS before, so IBS, it's like we always go back. When did you first notice that your gut went out of kilter? You know, what was going on around that time where you first got that first migraine? You know, and so constitutional is looking at the body. All of our bodies are different. Like we were talking about Ayurveda and Vata, and then other people are Kapha. So Vata's like very busy, moving. I'm very Vata. Kapha is kind of chilled. They struggle to get going, whereas Vata can't stop. And so we're looking at these body types, how your digestion works, what your stools are like, what your skin is like. So we go through all of the body and sort of look at that. We look at your medical history, drug history as well, because that's, I was going to say unfortunately, but that is a factor that we also have to take into account. Vaccinations that people have had, that can have quite an effect on people's health that they wouldn't necessarily automatically relate, you know. People's characters, that's absolutely fundamental. What makes them angry, whether they're prone to anger, snapping. If they're going to get angry, how do they respond? Do they want to punch a wall, or do they imagine strangling someone, or do they shout, stamp their feet? You know, it's like all of these things are so important. Whether they cry publicly or are too ashamed to cry publicly, they'd only cry with someone they really knew really well.
So what do they suppress?
What do they? Yeah, exactly. So then that takes me into like family history. How were you brought up? Also illnesses in the family. We also look at that. And and I guess constitutionally, you asked me how it's useful for a parent to know. So if you imagine a family with maybe 3 children, and all the children get colds from time to time, but little Maisie, whenever she gets a cold, it always goes to her chest and she has a lingering cough for months, you know? And so we look at the family history for Maisie, for example, and it may be within the family that Grandpa Joe died of tuberculosis, or Auntie Fanny had pneumonia, you know, and then you start to build a picture of diseases that have had an influence and have been, we're all a product of all of the diseases of the past, but there are some that create weaknesses in the body. This is going into what we call miasmatic treatment of homeopathy. So we've talked about acute homeopathy, we've talked about constitutional, and then miasmatic, that's like not something that I'm going to talk anything more about apart from just that, but that is really looking at inherited, we call it weaknesses or susceptibility. So little Maisie might have a particular susceptibility to her chest. So she might have a little weakness in her chest that got passed down from Uncle, Grandpa Joe, because he had TB or pneumonia or something. And so then we would work constitutionally to support that little Maisie to strengthen, give her constitutional remedies that work specifically on the lung, chest region. And that constitutional remedy would strengthen her. So I would be, if I had a mum who had a little one, and that's very common for a mum to bring a little one that's every winter they're ill. She always gets, no matter what it is, she always gets whatever cold or cough's going around, she'll always get it. Everyone else will get better, but she'll just be coughing for weeks. And so we then work constitutionally to find the remedy that matches Maisie best of all. And as I said, we're gathering all of this information, and then a homeopath will match her picture to a homeopathic remedy picture.
And I think that's so interesting, because that happened similar to my youngest.
Yeah.
And it's almost putting the it's knowing that there's the weak spot, isn't it? Even though you know it, it's kind of understanding why and what you can do to support it as they grow older.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's really nice.
So because these things, they take time.
Yeah.
You know, it may be some, especially if we're adults, you know, it can take time to undo these chronic illnesses and symptoms that have been around for such a long time in our world, you know, in our body. But with a child, it's simpler because they're less complicated. They've had less layers. They've been less through life. So it's always a lot clearer with children, and children generally respond really well to homeopathic remedies. So knowing what a child's constitution is, you can monthly or every 3 months go back and get a constitutional remedy. And so obviously we're in summer now. And so people that I work with and children that I work with that maybe suffer through winter time, I will give them remedies that they take monthly up until, or maybe we'll do I'll give them a prescription for a month, and then we might let's meet 2 more times before winter, give them a constitutional remedy. And so by the time winter comes again, they're a little bit stronger. And hopefully the idea is that they'll succumb less to colds. And if they did get a cold, maybe it would go to a cough, but it wouldn't last as long and it would be less intense.
Yeah.
And really treating something annually like that or over a period of time, it doesn't have to be years and years and years at all. But it may be that, you know, you just remaining connected and have a few sessions each year, and then that strengthens it softens that weakness.
Yeah.
It strengthens their constitution, so they're less susceptible to becoming ill. And the other thing, sort of both of your questions about how homeopathy can be used within the family, if a mother understands that, I say mother or father, understands that, then they know they're getting that constitutional support. And what I'll also do is equip the parents when they begin to get that cold. These are the remedies you need to start to give them. And so then it's like a 2-pronged attack. They're getting that constitutional support that's supporting them, but then the parent also knows how to treat them when it actually starts to manifest. And that's the dream team. You know, you're working with the family to support them. And then if it progresses, then obviously we can do a consultation and go deeper with a deeper acting remedy, you know, because what the parent's working with is like acute. But all the time, all of the remedies, they're always strengthening, because homeopathy always works to support the body. It's never working against the body in the way that unfortunately allopathy can do, because homeopathy is working alongside the body, because the body is amazing, the innate wisdom of the body. And, you know, and we also have a belief that the body has a self-healing mechanism.
So on this, I know, only because we're getting short on time now, can we touch on fevers and Calpol a little bit now that we're kind of talking about the natural healing process? It's good to bring it in at this point, because also one of the best things you can do for a child, especially if they've got I work with families that have, you know, that they might have been to the doctor a lot for a chest thing. So the child might have had a lot of Calpol, a lot of antibiotics, which actually, in my view, weakens the system. So it actually leaves them more prone, like we spoke about, all the good bacteria gets wiped out. So then the body's more prone next time to getting ill. So working constitutionally with the remedies, sometimes a remedy will induce a fever, actually, because in a way, the body, this self-healing mechanism, we're using homeopathy just to trigger the body's innate self-healing mechanism. And sometimes that can create a fever, because in a way it brings in an energy and suddenly the body's got a little bit more vitality to raise a fever, because a fever the fever uses a lot of the body's natural energy, vitality to raise the temperature. And that's a conscious thing of the body. And I think a lot in our society, we're very conditioned to fear fever, not to trust the body. But actually, if we understand how the body works and trust what it's trying to do, knowing it's always got our survival and health as its number one priority, everything it does is to keep us well. And I think there's a bit of a lack of trust in that in general, because when we get ill, we're kind of conditioned. We run off to the doctor to get a drug, but the body doesn't need that. It just needs us to support it with the right food, just with nature, basically. And I think the closer we stick to nature, the better. But it can be scary as a parent when your child's fever, they get hotter and hotter. And we have been told as society, you know, to take something to suppress that. And it's scary, because I know as a parent, if my child was hitting a really high fever, if I then took them into A&E and they said, well, you didn't do something about it. I would then look like I've been really irresponsible, you know? So,
yeah. So again, we're going back to the plan A and plan B, you know? So all of that is there. The Calpol's there, which we know brings down a fever. But what we want to do as parents is work with the fever and work with the body. So I would say there's certain homeopathic remedies you can use to, and again, it's down to that if you've got a few children, one remedy might work really well to bring down a fever in one child, and another remedy might work really well to bring down a fever in another child. So again, it's about educating yourself and also not fearing fever. We are very conditioned to fear fever. And I would say that if you're in a state of fear as a parent, you're not connected to yourself. So that's easier said than done. I get that. And then going back again to where a child is kind of they've had a lot of antibiotics, a lot of drugs. A fever is one of the things you can do, the body does, to clean itself. Mm-hmm. And what I see is when children go through a fever, I think it was Hippocrates that says, give me a fever and I can heal any disease. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he knew, he knew a lot, and he knew that. And so basically what the body's doing is when it raises a fever, it's like burning off loads of crap. Mm-hmm. It's burning off unwelcome visitors, invaders, but it's also stimulating the immune system. So it puts a lot of its own vitality into raising a fever for very good reason, because it knows it's going to create health by burning things off that aren't welcome in the body. And that could be, I believe it could be toxicity as well as, bacteria and things that may cause us to be ill. So what you can do to support a fever is to learn the sort of classic homeopathic remedies that support fever. 3, aconite, belladonna, I'd say 4 actually, chamomilla and pulsatilla. Mm-hmm. Helios do a really nice combination remedy called ABC. This remedy I use for fever, pain, inflammation. So it's a really great one to use for a fever. So if you're totally bamboozled by which remedy to use, it's kind of a good starter. Homeopathy is always best, as I said, if you individualise its prescription. So you may find that belladonna really suits one of your children. Belladonna is, I spoke about it before, hot, red. If it was you could feel like a throbbing sensation. If you had a headache, it's throbbing. Belladonna can also a child in a belladonna fever can also go delirious. Okay. So that's like kind of classic, and it's also not to frighten a parent, but that's just an indicator of belladonna. Aconite and belladonna fevers, both of those remedies are taken from plants. They're actually poisonous in nature. So they have this kind of very sudden, strong, intense effect. So a fever that you put a child to bed and they maybe they seem a bit grumpy, and then midnight, raging fever. There's also times in homeopathic remedies. So aconite aggravates at midnight. So if you have a child that has got a fever at midnight, that could be an indication that aconite fits. There's lots of other things you'd look at, whether they're pale, their emotional state. We said aconite is fear. So they might be in quite an agitated, fearful state. So that might indicate aconite. If they woke at 3 a.m., that's more of a belladonna time. They need to be red, very hot. You can feel the heat radiating off a belladonna child in a fever. Aggravate at 3. They have very often dilated pupils. They have like a wild look about them, belladonna fevers. So there's things, and in this little book, there's a fever section where it describes just a few words so you can it helps parents differentiate.
I think that's what people need, isn't it? Yeah. It's like breaking it down and making it simple, because to come into the world of homeopathy not really knowing a lot, you'd be like, oh my God, am I taking the wrong one? Which one do I give? So the fact that it's all kind of really simply broken down. This is like, as I said, this is like really simple, basic homeopathy, and it also talks about homeopathy, but also other sort of ways you can support a fever, like other herbs and teas that you can drink, because we don't ever want to suppress a fever. That's what, when we're taking a homeopathic remedy, it's not going to necessarily, it may bring the fever down if the fever's done what it needs to already. But sometimes it might raise a fever and then it will come down because it's working with the body. The body wants the fever because it knows it can make itself better. A good example, just to illustrate for parents, is that say you went to India and you took some rice, you ate some rice that had bacteria in it. The body would, what would it do? It would straight away make you vomit and diarrhea. That would be like the most common thing that people get, like delly belly. And it's from eating bacteria that the body's unfamiliar with.
we're taught that we should take Imodium. You've got diarrhea, so you need to solve that symptom. You need to take Imodium. So people would take Imodium to stop the diarrhea, but then the body's caught with the bacteria in the body still. So then it might raise a fever. And we're taught you've got to bring the fever down. Yeah. So then we take Calpol or an antipyretic drug to bring the fever down. And then the body's still got the bacteria to deal with.
So what about if a child is in pain though? Because that's one thing that I let my children have fevers, but sometimes I kind of debate whether I should let them be in pain whilst having a fever.
Yeah, but remedies are so good at dealing with pain.
Okay.
Yeah, so like chamomilla we spoke about.
Yeah.
So if your child is in pain and they've got a fever and they're angry, chamomilla might be the perfect one. Perfect. Like, depending what the pain is from. Because rather than looking at the fever, we actually look to treat what symptoms are going on around the fever. That is a better way for you to treat what's going on with your child rather than treating the fever. Right. You can use the ABC remedies, aconite, belladonna, chamomilla to treat a fever, but it's not, it's actually better to look at what's going on around it and to treat those symptoms as well.
Sorry, we're running out of time, but I know you said if there's anything specifically that you would like to talk about during the episodes or anything you want to discuss.
Well, I had a question that we haven't, because it's come up briefly a couple of times, and in consultations you always ask about whether a child is vaccinated or not. Yeah. And I just wonder what the approach, how it differs between how you would respond to whether a child is vaccinated or unvaccinated.
Yeah. To be honest, it doesn't really change the way you prescribe as a homeopath. All it is that if somebody's vaccinated, you would take that into consideration in that timeline. Has it had an effect? Because many people, it doesn't affect and it's fine. But many children, it really affects. And so I had a little boy that we have also an expression, never been well since a vaccination, glandular fever, pneumonia. And so if you've got somebody or a child that's not been well since receiving a vaccination and you can work out that is the cause, then you would detox the vaccination.
So is that what you can do?
Yeah. There's a homeopathic detox program that I would put anybody through, whether it's the COVID vaccine, whether it's a childhood vaccine, as long as you're sure it's related. So I wouldn't.
And it's caused negative,
yes,
I guess.
Yeah, that the body haven't been well since they've had that.
And do you see that?
Yeah, very often. Very often. Okay. Yeah. And so it's not. Yeah. So that's probably what I would. Otherwise, you wouldn't treat anybody differently for having it. Yeah. On that topic is just encourage people to do their research. I mentioned like Jane Donegan, Dr. Jane Donegan. If you are a parent and you're not sure whether you want to vaccinate, do the full program, delay vaccination. Jane Donegan does a whole series of talks and she's so worth listening to. She's so well researched, so well read. She's a GP and a homeopath, so she's really got that balance of both worlds. And she just gives really practical, really brilliant advice for parents that are, they're maybe a little bit on the fence, or if you just want to gather more information, I really recommend hers. And also Arnica, which is an organisation for parents online, as well as there's a website, arnica.org.uk. And there's just a wealth of information on there for people that are interested in natural immunity. So I'd say those two are good signposts for parents that want to look into that a little bit more.
Okay, fantastic.
Amazing. So if we got time, should we finish on the quick fire?
Yeah, quick fire questions.
Oh, there's so much we could talk.
Oh, I know. We're
just getting started.
Yeah.
So what is your favourite remedy?
Sepia.
Sepia.
That's hard, isn't it? Because now that we've discussed constitutions, it's difficult.
No, I would say pulsatilla.
Okay.
Because I think of pulsatilla as like a homeopathic hug.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it is. It's such a comforting, beautiful remedy for insecure children, first day at school, where they don't want to have separation anxiety.
Well, I give it to my daughter Tara. She's autistic, and especially around the kind of fear and separation anxiety.
It's such a lovely homesickness where you just feel like they don't quite feel safe. And you can, if it has to fit their picture, but where it does, it just brings so much comfort. And
that's nice.
Homeopathic hug. Remember that.
I like that. A homeopathy myth you want to bust?
Homeopathy is not just placebo. I have to say that. Homeopathy works for people in comas, farm animals, agro homeopathy. People use it on the farm to grow crops, to protect crops against pesticides, farm animals, children, babies, like baby doesn't know that it's getting a homeopathic remedy.
Yeah, so true.
And so homeopathy it may have an aspect of placebo, like all medicine does. It makes you feel better, knowing that you're just taking it, but it's so much more than placebo. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
It's mine. Your favorite holistic health book?
I think anybody that wants to is interested in what we've spoken about today and wants to learn more about homeopathy. There's a book by a lady called Amy Lansky. It's called The Impossible Cure.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Brilliant book. And she actually cured her child using homeopathic detox and homeopathic remedies from autism.
Oh, okay.
Wow,
so that's really worth people. I really want people to know that that sort of thing is possible. So Amy Lansky, The Impossible Cure, brilliant. And it also sort of just gives a really good broad introduction and explanation about homeopathy and the law of cure and how it works and how to not suppress and all of these things. So it's a really brilliant book.
Interesting. Okay, great. Thank you.
A morning ritual you swear by?
Oh, I think that would have to be my lemon water with my tissue salts in.
Nice.
We haven't spoken about tissue salts, but
we haven't. Can I really quickly say, actually, I was talking about tissue salts, is my daughter Suvi had some cavities and I started giving her tissue salts and she was having problems with her teeth and they've completely gone,
amazing.
Which is amazing. So 100% swear by tissue salts.
And just on that calc floor, which is calcium and fluoride, is probably one of the tissue salts you gave her.
It was a dental one in particular.
Yeah, it strengthens the enamel. And because we don't like fluoride, just saying, everyone, avoid fluoride toothpaste. Use your calc fluor if you want to strengthen your child's teeth. Tissue salt.
It's incredible though. It happens very, very quickly as well.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good.
Okay.
It's my turn again.
Sorry, I am not with it. She's in the room.
Oh, yeah. What's one thing that modern parents need to hear more often?
Trust yourself. Yeah, I think trust yourself. Trust that instinct. Nobody knows your child like you do.
Yeah.
And I think we've been conditioned out of trusting our motherly maternal instinct. And I would say, don't betray yourself or your child. Trust yourself.
Love that.
Yeah.
And one word to describe homeopathy.
Can I use 5?
Go.
Yes.
The medicine of the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love that.
Albert Einstein quoted, the future medicine will be frequency medicine.
Okay.
And he knew a lot. So if he says it, it must be true.
Yeah.
So homeopathy is the medicine of the future.
Amazing. Yeah. Oh, Zoe, thank you. I'm so sorry we've had to wrap it up.
Yeah, so quickly.
Already.
Not
so if people want to find you, where can they find you? What's your website?
ZoeScanlan.com.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I think it's Zoe Scanlan. I think it's Zoe maybe family homeopath.
Tag you.
Tag me. I can't exactly remember. It's Zoe Scanlan family homeopath, or maybe other way around.
Amazing, Zoe. Thank you so much.
That's my pleasure. It's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you. My pleasure.